I'm Josie Jaffrey. I'm the author of 4 books that together comprise the Solace Invicti series. The 4th book in the series is called The Silver Bullet, and today I'd like to do a short reading for you from that book. So I ended book 3, Bound in Silver, on a massive cliffhanger, sorry about that, and book 4 picks up pretty much where book 3 left off. So Emmy, who's the protagonist of the series, is running away from Ben, who is one of the vampiric Silver, who is trying to kill her at this stage. She is with her friend Ollie, who is another human, and they are on the Silver's compound, which is sort of a massive farm. And whilst they're running away from Ben, they're also trying to run away from the zombie-like creatures that have surrounded the compound, who are called the Weepers. So as we join Emmy, she's just managed to get away from Ben and is now trying to escape the Weepers who are pursuing her. She's just abandoned a car that she has been using to flee from the Weepers, and she's now going on foot. The compound was only half a mile or so past the car, I reminded myself. I was going at a slower pace than normal in my bare feet, but it shouldn't be more than 5 minutes running. Anxiety was racing my pulse and making it difficult for me to breathe, so I started counting the seconds down from 300, down to the time when I should reach safety, regulating my breath in time with the count. The first building loomed over me as I approached it, blocking out the moonlight with its height. It was perhaps 4 stories tall, and its shape had the look of a warehouse. I doubted that there would be any help for me here. I couldn't see a thing in the shadow of the structure, so even if there were a door on the near side, I wouldn't have been able to locate it. I was also reluctant to take my chances by stepping into its pitch-black shade, where anything could be waiting for me, so I skirted around the building to its far side. The gentle moonlight picked out an area of hard standing about the size of a football pitch, surrounded on 3 sides by what looked like warehouses and barns. It was locked up tight, metal shutters pulled close across the front of each one. On the 4th side, a dirt road led off to 3 more clusters of buildings. There was another howl behind me, closer this time. There was no sign that Ollie had stopped here, so rather than hiding where the Weepers would be likely to find me, I ran onto the crossroads and squinted down each pathway, trying to find some mark of Ollie's passage. I saw nothing. My anxiety increased as I worried about what might have happened to him, handicapped as he was by his injured leg, but there was no time to waste. I ran towards the complex of buildings that was furthest away from the direction from which I had come, wanting to put as much space as possible between me and the Weepers, and sprinted on as quickly as I could. My heart was racing, my feet screaming with each thud down onto the gravelly dirt, but I pushed myself onwards. My lungs protested against the exertion, and I struggled to suppress my coughing as the dirt grated in my throat, but I had to keep quiet, swallowing dryly while my eyes watered. The last thing I wanted was to let the Weepers know where I was. The next cluster of buildings was larger, with perhaps 15 structures arranged around a central area of clear concrete. The buildings were of different sizes and functions, their strange shapes and configuration too specific to be accidental. Whilst I supposed that its size gave me the greatest chance of finding assistance, the disadvantage of having selected this complex was that I was running into shadow, the open side of the courtyard facing away from the moonlight so that the barns ahead of me blocked the light from reaching the ground. There were 3 howls in quick succession, all seeming to originate from different directions, and I gathered that my time was running out. I needed to find my way into one of the buildings here, and I needed to do it now. I raced into the embrace of the complex, stubbing my toes against rocks in the dark, and aimed myself at one of the smaller buildings. There was no definition to any of my surroundings, the night washing away the edges of things, but I figured that the smaller buildings were more likely to house people instead of animals or storage. The ground here was littered with hidden obstacles, both small and large. I was stepping on flints in the darkness, their sharp edges slicing into the soles of my feet. I prayed that no trace of the Weeper gore would find its way into my wounds. Then, as I crossed the middle of the courtyard, I tripped over something and fell down onto my hands and knees, hard. Covering my mouth to stifle a moan, I froze, aware that any tiny sound might bring the Weepers down on me. There was a clattering sound, but I couldn't tell whether it was the settling noise of whatever I had fallen onto, or if it was something else entirely. I held my body tense, crouched close to the ground. There was a voice. It was barely there, so quiet that I didn't believe that it was real until it whispered out again. "Is there someone there?" "Yes," I whispered back as quietly as possible, wanting to make it clear to whomever was listening that I wasn't a weeper, but without drawing their attention to my location. "Emmy?" There was a beat of silence as my heart leapt with relief. "Ollie? Thank God you're okay. How did you get away?" "Later," I whispered quickly, wanting to minimise the noise. There were 2 more howls and I froze again. "Over here by the back corner," he whispered after a moment. "I think I found a door." He was on my right, on the other side of the complex from the building I had been heading towards. I felt my way up to my feet, being careful to step around the collection of objects that had tripped me up, and crept quickly towards him. As I reached him, he started throwing himself up against the door, trying to jar it open with his shoulder. "Damn it," he whispered, "I can't get it open." There was another howl, this time sounding like it was just on the other side of the building. "We need to run," I said. "We haven't got time to stop." "You go," he said, still battering at the door. "I'm not going without you, but we can't stay here if it won't open. Come on." "I can't, Emmy," he said in an anguished whisper. "My leg's completely fucked from the run here. Just go." I paused for a second, then made my decision. I joined in with Ollie, the 2 of us slamming into the door in a desperate attempt to pop it open. Every time we thudded against it, there seemed to be a howl, and we knew we were gambling everything on the chance that we'd be able to budge it before the weepers got to us. I fixed my eyes on the illuminated stretch of ground beyond the edge of the courtyard as we pushed. There was movement in the space now, but it was hard to make out the shapes. The light shifted and flowed, and I realised that the bodies were pouring towards us, silently filling the approach to the complex. "They're coming," I said. "Ollie." "I know." There was no question of running now, even if Ollie had been able. We were trapped into the corner. Either we'd get the door open, or we'd die here in the dark. But it wasn't budging. It rang heavily with each impact, but it wasn't moving in its frame. "Ollie," I said quietly, falling still behind him and reaching for his arm. He carried on battering at the door. "It's solid metal, Ollie. It's not going to move." But he wouldn't stop. I watched the first of the weepers cross onto the concrete floor of the courtyard, then I turned back to the door and joined in with Ollie once more. I knew it was futile, but at least it was something to do, something to stop me from feeling so utterly powerless. We'd made the wrong decision when we stopped here. We'd tried. We'd failed. So that's the end of the extract I wanted to read for you. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. You can get the entire Solus Invicti series on Amazon, and if you're a Kindle Unlimited user, then they are available to you for free. If you want to know more about me and my books, then you can check out my website at www.josiejaffrey.com. The links are all below for you.